So I love Columns because it's a really cheap game and they made 1 million of them. In fact, I own Super Columns for the Game Gear, Columns for the Game Gear. I own 2 copies of Columns for the Game Gear, and I own Super Columns boxed. And I know, this is an unboxing. Will I be unboxing this? No. This is a sealed copy of Columns. You know how many there are? Probably a ton. Okay, but this one's mine. Also, Columns for the Sega Genesis. I paid $4.50 for it. It's my most prized possession. Okay. A column or pillar in architecture and structural engineering is a structure that transmits through compression the weight of a structure above to other structural elements below. In other words, a column is a compression member. Wait, that's the wrong type of column. Sorry, columns is a vertical division of page or text. Columns is a match 3 puzzle video game created by Jay Gersten in 1989. Early versions were ported across computer platforms, and then Jay sold the rights to Sega, who ported the game to several of their own consoles. Columns was the pack-in title for the Game Gear, so Nintendo had the pack-in title of Tetris, and Sega responded with Columns. Now, Columns will never be Tetris, it's just not as good of a game. There's a good chance that this will be the first time you've ever heard of Columns, because nobody is talking about the game. It didn't age as well as some other games released at its time, but at the release, people were talking about Columns. It had an arcade cabinet. An arcade cabinet, and it has been given countless amounts of points, and it's included in most of Sega's collections. Although Columns certainly isn't a well talked about game, that doesn't mean it doesn't matter. So let's see some gameplay. So Columns is similar to Tetris in that... Is my microphone on? Something's wrong. Something's wrong. No, we're good. Okay, so Columns is similar to Tetris because it's a falling block puzzle game, and the goal is to not get to the top of the screen. But unlike Tetris, you can't rotate the pieces, and you can instead only change the order of the column. Hence the name Columns. So I'm gonna play a full game of Columns because this is quality content. And if you don't agree, well then you're right. It's really not. But so this definitely isn't my favorite falling block puzzle game. It's not that it's bad, it's just that, like, I don't play it that much, because, I don't know, it doesn't have that thing where, like, you want to just play again. No, you play a game of Columns and you're like, okay, that was alright, I'm good now. So you want the blocks to kind of, like, cascade on each other, so that way you get more of them to fall down and can get a higher score. Because yes, we're playing for score, as you do in all modern video games. There's also 2-player versions of Columns, but mostly those are just kind of like in Pac-Man, where one of you plays and then the other plays, so it doesn't really add a whole lot. But, you know, it's something. You see, this is difficult, because I don't want to lose, because I don't want to look like I suck at Columns, but I don't want to play well, because I don't want to play, like, a super long game, because that would... I don't know what to say anymore. So, you know what? I'm just gonna have Daniel fast forward the rest of this, and play a poem over it. So, yeah. Columns. I love columns because the gems are so pretty. I love them. Just like I love dogs and armadillos because columns are vertical. Unlike the horizon. Sunsets are good too, but not as good as columns because columns has blocks that fall and I place them so delicately like a flower or airplane. Maybe one day columns will love me back, but probably not. So columns, I love you. Like a bird loves an egg, like a dog loves a puppy, like a human loves a child. Unconditionally. Because you're not very good. Okay, so this is about to be the end of my columns experience. It's been about 10 minutes, which is part of the reason I don't play this game this much, is because I don't really ever want to sit down and play columns for 10 minutes. But anyway, I'm at a score of about 5,000, and the blocks are dropping just too fast to really do anything. So, anyway, that's been columns.
Whoa, guys, wasn't that cool? But I think we're all ready for the, tech reviews. Let's hit it, kids. All right.
The Game Gear is an 8-bit fourth generation handheld game console released by Sega on October 6, 1990. So, the first thing you'd probably notice is the size of the thing. I don't think it fits in any pockets ever, like, not even cargo shorts. And it's pretty heavy for a handheld system of the time. Also, it takes 6 AA batteries, and it murders them. Like, it's a few hours, really. So it goes through a ton of batteries, which is not a great thing. This compared to the Game Boy, which is smaller and will murder less batteries, doesn't seem all that compelling, but it is a much more powerful console. It includes unique games, including the one and only columns, of course, and it has a full color display that looks good from some angle, but I can't seem to find it. So, should you buy a Game Gear today? No, of course not. A lot of the games are just worse versions of Genesis games, and the ones that aren't, well, they aren't much to write home about. Man, did you hear someone at the door? Oh, look! A letter. I love Fred Couples Golf for the Sega Game Gear. Love, your dad, March 3rd, 1993. Well, guess that proves me wrong.